Roamed the hallways during a Wednesday or sometime during the week and asked little ones and big ones what the word of the week means, and I found some people, and here we go.
I'm with my friend Evie, and I'm going to ask her a question because this week we're going to talk about being authentic. Evie, do you know what authentic means?
Yes, it means be truthful and be yourself.
So, would your grandpa and grandma be authentic?
Yes,
How about your mom and dad?
yes,
Your brother, even?
maybe.
And do you still like the Vikings?
Yes.
Thank you, Evie. Hi, everybody. This is another friend of mine, Logan. We're talking about being authentic. Can you please tell me what you think the word authentic means?
Real and not fake.
And so, if you think about real and not fake, who in your life is real, not fake?
My family and friends.
And what do you think in and around you would be fake?
Rumors at school.
So I'm here with another friend of mine, Noah. We're talking about being authentic. Do you know what the word authentic means?
It means being real and honest.
Say, to be real and honest, your sister, Evie, seemed to indicate that she thought you were borderline fake. Is there something you'd like to say to her?
Well, I think I'm probably going to take the high road and forgive her.
Totally authentic. I did not tell him to say that at all. Okay, I did. If I'm going to be real, if I'm going to be authentic, a preacher notices when people are listening to him or her. Some people look at the wall, and we see you look at the wall behind us, or we see you stare at the back of the neck of the person in front of you. Isn't that something, how everybody is looking right at me right now? Isn't that great? See what I did there? Just to do you a solid, don't ever look at the ceiling. You can think you're looking up at heaven, but we just simply know you're not paying attention to us. I mean, even if you choose to eyeball me, especially when I go without notes, I found it helpful to eyeball and elongate someone to see whether or not they're feigning interest, because I can continue to look at you, and if you look away, I know that you're just kind of pretending. And here's another thing. I know that many of you are perhaps somewhere during the sermon thinking of the last 35 seconds of the Vikings-Chargers game. I know that some of you are perhaps thinking, what do we need at Target? Milk and bread and peanut butter and detergent. And by all means, don't look down and say to a husband or wife or a child, what do we need at Target? Because we will hear you, we'll see you, and then don't text. Sometimes we'll see your head is down. We know you're texting. We know all those things. Just being real. Speaking of being authentic, I thought I should provide more definitions about being authentic. It's being not false, not copied, genuine, real, and bona fide. It's figuring out who we are. It's understanding our strengths. It's coming to grips with our shortcomings. It's constructing a strong enough ego to not be capsized by the assertive in our midst, but also have the ability to be humble and kind. That's a tall task, wanting to be strong, yet vulnerable, courageous, yet afraid of what's truly frightening. I want to be confident, yet even when I'm on the right side of the ledger, I want to be humble and kind. But here's the good news, or is it the bad news? The task is never ending. It's an endeavor that one never completes or is just set in stone. As I reach almost the 6-0 age, I realize that I have a lot of growing up to do. Now, maybe playgrounds and hallways and lunchrooms, maybe the same rules are not in play because everything changes, but my guess is pretty much the same. Throughout my entire childhood, I had a front row seat to all of this stuff because we moved more than a lot of people in the witness protection program. I moved when I was in second grade, and then my dad says we're going to move when I was in fourth grade, and then we moved when I was in sixth grade, which explains why I'm messed up like I am. And each time we moved, I had to enter a new paradigm, or so I thought. And this week I was thinking about my life, and my upbringing and all the things therein, and I almost became a psychologist, so I loved that stuff. And I realized that when I went from school to school, town to town, the names were different. But in class and in the hallways and in the lunchroom, at football games and at dances, whether it be southeastern or southwestern Minnesota, whether the school was small, medium, or large, same challenges, same pitfalls, same victories and defeats. It was the same dance in a metaphorical sense, of course. And yes, who we strive to be, that is marinated and it's cooked most of the time at home with the people we love the most, but sooner or later, baby, we got to take that show on the road. And then we go to school, or go to work, or go to college, or graduate school, or wherever we go, and that's the real test. It's one thing to think and practice and rehearse, but whether it be sports or music or theater or robotics or good old-fashioned test, the game and the concert is the real test. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Now I know, is it the chicken or is it the egg? In this case, do we make ourselves or are we made by others? And my answer to that is yes. No matter how it happens, however, these questions have to be answered. Who am I? How have I been created by God? Will I go where I'm told to go, or will I become what other people want me to be? And most importantly, who determines my value? Now, I'm sorry, it may seem like I'm almost done with my sermon, but I have 3 points. Sorry, actually, no, to be authentic, sorry, not sorry. But I promise I will not dawdle. Point number 1, be yourself, everyone else is already taken. Oscar Wilde, he is wild. He's long dead, but he has a brilliant mind, and he's a little off-center. He's a little bit frisky when he gets to what he talks about, but that's why I like it, because it gets right to the heart. You can Google Oscar Wilde quotes, and you'll say, ooh, Pastor Lilliard, interesting. But he doesn't mince words. Be yourself, everyone else is already taken. So I have a sibling named John, J-O-N. My mom and dad thought that should have one kid who has to spell his first name and last name. Lilliard, yes. John, J-O-N, yes. He's 5 years my elder. John played the trumpet. I decided as a young boy, you know what, I'll play the trumpet too, because that's a smart move. 5 years older, my brother ended up being all-state in band, all-state in choir. And then I played trumpet, and I was no good. I've said before, I played third chair trumpet only because there was not a fourth and a fifth. I could have chosen any of the myriad of instruments, but I saw my brother play a trumpet, and I thought, well, me too. John was also a really good golfer. I thought it was a good idea to play golf with him. Turns out it wasn't a good idea. 5 years my elder, my brother played collegiate golf. My father was a 1 to 5 handicap his entire life. My brother was a scratch golfer. So I thought, I'll just go golfing because this trumpet thing worked out really well. I think I'll just do another evolution. So I went golfing with them. It was terrible. They were great, and I was just 5 years younger. One time, I think it was in St. James, when I was there, my father, who was never very delicate when he talked to us too, it was the 15th or 16th green, my father motioned me over and he said, son, yes, no matter how pathetically you hit your irons or woods, it will go farther than when you throw the golf ball. And I was absolutely astonished because I thought as far up as they were, they didn't see me going, whew. But you know what I discovered? I had a good arm. You know what I did? Played baseball. Really good at it. Softball all the way through graduate school. I played 6 days a week. I played in a team that had a bus that went all through the upper Midwest, and I discovered that because I copied my brother in playing golf, and I realized I have a good right arm. My brother attended Augsburg College. I visited him one time. I had a lot of fun in the frat house. Different sermon. I ended up attending Augsburg because I was familiar with the campus. I'm not kidding. That is how astute I was. Where are you going to college? I don't know. I know where all the buildings are at Augsburg. So I went. I am not at all ever named as the esteemed graduates of Augsburg College. In fact, I said at first service, to be authentic, I'll say it again. 3 of our kids, one graduated from St. Olaf, the other's a senior. We have a first year at Gustavus. My alma mater sent one postcard to one of my kids once. They are not proud of me. That's okay, but they don't have any more of my money because I saw through that. But I could have picked other colleges, but for me, that's how I am. To this day, if I'm following a vehicle, where they go, I will go. Chris Tomlin has, I'll follow you where you go. My wife and I always have this. If someone's going, we went to a concert, Lauren Daigle last night, and if someone's going the wrong way, I will follow. And she'll say, seriously, get a grip. This sign has been created for me because I will just go into the work area. That's just kind of how I am. I think, and I'm thinking that with my dad and my mom and my brother, I think I was just there and I followed. But no matter how old someone is, it can be tempting to go with the flow and follow the herd. It's important, even vital, to be who you are, go where you feel led to go, and do what you want to do and feel called to do. But I'm telling you my story. I thought about this week and I thought, I guess that's kind of how I've lived my life. Point number 2, say what you mean and mean what you say. I don't know what the government's up to. I don't know how many times we're going to up the debt ceiling and all the things, and we're going to shut this down and where we're going to go from here. Can't wait till next November. I think that's going to be good, all that. But I actually think if people would say what you mean and mean what you say, I think it'd be a better place to live. And Stephanie, I like this. She continues, don't be afraid to stand firm on the decisions that you made. Trust yourself, believe in your instincts, do what works best for you. Stay true to yourself and be good to yourself. Allow every decision that you make to empower, enrich, and add value to your life. So I had Kathy Radcliffe, who will always write someone. I say, will you please get permission, because I don't want to, we don't want to get sued, and so we have to have permission. Will you reach out to her, because I've always liked her quotes. I just never knew exactly how many she had, or her spirit. And so she reached out and said, can one of our pastors quote you and show a picture that's on your blog, because he, in this case, would just like to use it. And she wrote back and said, of course. And so thanks to Stephanie, I can show this. That's Stephanie, exquisite Black Queen. And when you read her words, she's exactly as great as you think, right there. And when she wrote back, and she's written a lot, she's a lot more prolific than I am. She wrote back and said, thank you so much for asking. I appreciate it. Your pastor wants to mention me in any way, shape, or form. I'm humbled. Do you hear and see what I just did? You can be confident, but not be obnoxious. You can be prolific. You can be someone worthy of being quoted. At the same time, be in awe of the fact that somebody thinks that what you said is worth uttering. I'm an original, she says. I have no desire to be like you, her, or them. This unapologetic, exquisite Black Queen is unmatched. There is absolutely no reason for me to compete or copy or envy other women. I rock on a phenomenal level. And this 100% stoic Norwegian that struggled for much of my academic career, I will look at that and say, boy, honey, do I want a little of that. But maybe there was a time in her life she said, you know what? I want more of that. And what she wrote back is, I realize that she's both. She's confident, yet she's also gentle and kind. You have been wonderfully created by God. That's what I want you to know. You are to do what you've been enabled to do. You may be really smart. You may be personable. You may be a gifted athlete or musician or artist, but no one is great at everything. Some of us couldn't wait for Fayed. I love Fayed and lunch. I love study hall, but in Albert Lee, didn't have to study. They had a shake machine, and I had that with cheese popcorn. Yeah, it was fun. But I realized this week that if they're going to have any kind of academic bowl, any kind of history quiz, anything that would be intellectual in nature for all of my academic career, less college and graduate school, I would not be picked until the last. But in Fayed, I was in the top 5 every single time. I was an athlete, and I got an A. And I loved there was a class that I could shine in. And to be really honest, sometimes it was good for someone who's never ever gotten anything wrong on a test, and then they know that I can play kickball. They knew I could do every evolution in that, and it turned. I remember one of my mentors, unnamed, because I don't want to expose him too much, but very bright, in one of my calls, and I never really felt like I was bright enough. And then one of the other colleagues asked me to go out. We had a basketball hoop in the parking lot. And the senior pastor came out and said, "Do you want to play me in a game of horse?" And he never hit the rim one time. And I thought, I can do something better than you. No one is good at everything. You and I are good at something. And then I realized, when I graduated from college, I thought to myself, I could probably be a professional kickballer. But I might have kids, one who goes to St. Olaf and one who goes to Gustavus, and they don't pay really well for being a professional kickballer. So I decided to become a pastor because I know how lucrative that is. And so then when I thought about what I should do because I'm me, I thought about maybe I should be a pastor because that's what my father was. But I've done okay. I'm not being arrogant. I'm saying I've done better than okay. And I'm a good golfer, by the way. And I became a good student, by the way. In other words, even if you decide to copy somebody else, maybe that's the path you're supposed to take at times. The other times, be yourself. We were created for the life we are to live, so live it. I've told you, I'm going to say something that's actually quotable, and someone's going to write me someday and say, "Pastor Lilliard, someone wants to quote you in worship," and I'll say, "Yes," and then I will be like Stephanie, I'll say, "But I'm humbled," but I'm going to keep on doing it. Point number 3, almost done. The church is full of hypocrites. This is my quote: every church is chock full of sinners. We learned that last week, but every church has some hypocrites. Operative word, some. A hypocrite defined is a person who puts on a false appearance of virtue or religion, a person who acts in contradiction to their stated beliefs or feelings. When you look at words, when you look at anything like this, you have to know that there are operative words in here, some more important, and 2 being false appearance, and on the bottom, contradiction. The late, great Reverend Dr. William Hume. Here's a little bit of context. I interned in Mason City, Iowa. Pastor Sarah Fike has history and roots in that great city. Our Savior's Lutheran Church. It was a tiny little church in Mason City. Loved those people. But I also knew that in this case, there was the Trinity. 3 people who were on the committee that would evaluate me. And I knew that when I got done with that internship, they would give me a grade. They would tell those people in the ivory tower whether or not I was good enough to matriculate. You know, you just can't pass in holydom. You have to have a big word. And so that means you go on to the next year. When I was there, you had to go 4 years. Now kids are so bright that some go in just 2, but we weren't bright enough back then. But we would go back for the last year, and they would hose us off and make us better because some of us didn't do things correctly. 2 of the people of the 3 I got along with really well. One of them, not so much. She didn't fully appreciate me, and I didn't fully appreciate her. In fact, I found her to be very mean. But I was a preacher's kid ever since I was born. And I was born at night, but I wasn't born last night. And I knew that the people in the church, we lived in a parsonage, my dad was a pastor, our entire life was based upon the church, and I knew I couldn't simply say whatever I want, that if someone was mean to me as a kid, I couldn't go, well, you know what, here's what I want to say to you. Because it didn't go both ways. And I had a little talk with myself. I was like, David, this woman in this case has a lot of power, and if she doesn't like you and she doesn't pass you, you're going to be in trouble. So you know what? I was nice to her. Was it hard? Yes. 10 months. And I've done this for 32 years, and I've had counsels for 32 years, and I've had people judge me. There are 7,000 people in this congregation. That woman was as hard on me as anybody. And I needed a lot of prayer, but I was going to do it because I knew it was the right thing to do for me. You feel me? You ever had a job? You have to be nice to somebody? Just check it. So I go back for the last year, and I'm in this guy's class. He's pastoral care and counseling. And one day he talks about being a hypocrite. And he says, anyone here during internship, were you ever a hypocrite? And I was like, yes! Now, for those of you who don't know me intrinsically, I seem like I'm cavalier at times, and I have Kevlar. It's only because I have to armor myself at times. I am very, very sensitive. What you say, I care about. And so when I raised my hand, I just wanted to have an emotional enema. I wanted to just admit that I was fake. I wanted to get it off my chest. I wanted someone to absolve me. And he said, well, tell me the situation. And I told it to him. It was like being on Oprah. It was like Dr. Phil. I just spewed. And he said, I was like, that's it? And he said, David, why were you nice to her? That's a very good question. I said, because she could have brought great harm upon me. Because that was the truth. Dr. Hume said, David, you are not a hypocrite. I said, why do you say that? He said, if you would have said, I was nice to her because I'm a great Christian or I'm always nice, you would have been a hypocrite. In this case, you were just saving your hide. Some of you are looking at me quizzically. If you're at a wedding and you have a couple kids and you haven't figured out the kind of you go with the flow, there was a time I got yelled at because I told a lie. I'm not kidding, 1 iota, that about 4 months later when I was a little jigger, we went to a wedding and I had an aunt, unnamed. And we were at a wedding and my dad said, doesn't your aunt look good? And I said, no, that dress is hideous. And I think it was. But my daddy told me, you don't always tell the truth. And I said, this is really confusing. But for those of you who are quizzical, if I would have said I was nice to that woman because I'm just a nice guy, I would have been a hypocrite. But because I said I was nice because it was in my best interest, I am not a hypocrite. I might be something else. but I'm not a hypocrite. That means, in other words, come on, get with it. Everybody knows that. Always tell the truth. Where are the kids? Always tell the truth. Always tell the truth. Always tell the truth. Because you know what? If you do something wrong, this hypothetically, it's just a for instance, it's not like it ever happened, and your parents ask you whether or not you did it, and then you tell a lie, actually they're more disappointed in the fact that you didn't tell them the truth than probably the first offense. We begin every worship service by saying, I did it. And Jesus says, I know I saw it. We don't confess so Jesus forgives us. We confess because it makes us feel better. And a lot of people play games and say, I'm just nice to you because I'm a nice person. No, we tend to be nice to people who have more than we do, and sometime might do us a solid. At least we're one thing, but if we don't tell the truth, then we're that one thing and a liar. And I've learned from my wife, I've learned from parenting, I've learned by being a leader, I don't think there's anything worse than lying. Be free to be who you and what you really are. Love who you want to love. Be who you want to be. Don't try to fit in the caste system. You get to know some people and they'll say, yeah, I had this job. I was an accountant for 20 years and then I did this and I loved it. But if you love it, great. No fancy excuses or elaborate contextualization. Just be yourself. It's amazing how many times we'll say, yeah. Well, it is what it is. Today's text, oh Lord, you have searched me and know me. You know when I sit down. You know when I get up. You know when I do what is right. And you know when I mess up. You are acquainted with all my ways. In other words, since it's always known, why not just be? And for those people who love you the most, they'll accept you. Like I said before, at my age, I thought I would have figured this all out. But maybe when we continue to tell our kids, and we have a 23-year-old and a 21-year-old and an 18-year-old, and some of the things that I see them struggling with, I'm still struggling with them. And as long as Jesus loves us anyway, I thought, in light of that, we might as well dare to be who and what God has created us to be. Any of this relate to you? Or am I the only one? This week, just say it. Doesn't mean it can be unkind. But if you feel it, you think it. If it's who you are, you'll feel better. You'll do better. And you and I will be the real deal. So help us God. Amen.